And it doesn't
The
even...
way of me making change
In this cancel culture,
as judgmental as possible.
cancel culture in a nutshell,
Cancel culture actually.
Cancel
freedom of
culture.
speech.
With cancel culture.
With regards to Carson King case, the Mercury News claimed social media made him a celebrity and social media brought him down. But that is not what really happened. True, it was his photograph going viral on social media that created enough attention to make him a fundraising celebrity. And it was 8-year-old tweets made on social media, which is Twitter, that took the story in a different direction. However, it was also one reporter who learned that Carson King was kinda wobbly when he was young that led to King's downfall. Trying to hide behind newsworthiness and the public interest, Kelvin exposed those youthful tweets, and he did so with knowledge of King's relationship with Buzz Lightyear, knowing that the tweets would likely to end that relationship. Unfortunately, neither Kelvin nor the editorial staff of the Des Moines Register, which is the news company, exercised Tamper's rule. Kelvin was not fighting the good fight or protecting the public because he admitted that King was not the same person he was when he wrote those tweets. Rather, he was just drawing attention to himself as the one who brought down the Iowa legend, which is Carson King. The question is, what really happens here? What phenomena is this? Curious? Then please stay with me until the end of this session. Let's go. Social media made him a celebrity and social media brought him down. How does this happen? Why it happens? Well, this is a new phenomenon that has evolved rapidly along with the development of technology and social media. This phenomenon is known as cancel culture. Hello, good day everyone. What is cancel culture? Is it a positive or negative phenomenon? What are the impacts? Let's figure it out together with reference to an article entitled How Can We End Cancel Culture, Tort Liability or Tampers Rule, written by Nancy K. Let's go! We live in a cancel culture in which if someone, usually a celebrity, does something illegal or unethical, society quickly cancels them, lowering their celebrity status or cultural capital. According to Ohizer and Izadi, some people denounce it, pointing to instances of mob behavior and online infighting, or to situations where a career is jeopardized because of a bad tweet someone made as a teen. But it also can be used to describe how traditionally underrepresented and oppressed groups harness the internet and social media to hold awful people accountable when institutions won't. Being cancelled happens when there is a mismatch between the things someone said or did and the ethical expectation of their audience. Roseanne Barr's television series was cancelled after she made racist remarks on Twitter, and Shane Gillis was fired from Saturday Night Live before he even started after some racist remarks he had made in the past resurfaced. Based on this situation, what do you think of cancel culture? Is it a positive or negative phenomenon? Let's have a look at it together and see what we can come up with. Comedian Billy Eichner said that people should not rush to judgment and permanently cancel someone over something like their past mistake. But instead, people should be able to own up to past mistakes, acknowledging blind spots and hurtful remarks, talking through it, discussing it, learning, moving past it, and making progress together. Leah Asmelash of CNN says some people argue that cancel culture is justified because celebrities are facing repercussions for their actions. Others complain that it is an unfair form of gotcha. Either way, it is fans letting celebrities and other public figures know that they will be held accountable for their actions. Often, cancel culture creates conjecture as fact, which is particularly dangerous if the allegations are not true. But even if the allegations are true, why? Why dig up decade-old misstatements that may have been made in youthful ignorance? Thus, we can say that this phenomenon, cancel culture, do more harm than good. It is obviously a negative phenomenon. The author stated that cancel culture is not simply about criticizing others on social media. Instead, it is often about translating this digital criticism into real personal pain, which is to cause jobs to be lost, college admission to be revoked, and media platform to be shut down. Certainly, being cancelled has ruined people's reputation and changes at business opportunities. Taylor Swift said that, "I don't think there are that many people who can actually understand what it is like to have millions of people hate you very loudly. When you say someone is cancelled, it is not a TV show. It is a human being. You are sending mass amounts of message to this person to either shut up, disappear, or it could also be perceived as kill yourself." In this article, the author mentioned that while cancel culture is a relatively new phenomenon, the human impulses propelling it are old. Consider the novel The Scarlet Letter, a 17th century representation of society's impulse to publicly humiliate those who have fallen below society's perceived norms of moral behavior. While it is a fictional work, it is representative of the impulses behind cancel culture, since Hester Prynne's town sought to cancel her reputation. However, in 2019, in the internet-based cancel culture, anyone, anywhere can launch an attack on anyone, anywhere. Moreover, these attacks are available for all to see over an indefinite period of time. Due to the harm they can cause, these attacks must be moderated, if not eliminated, and therefore the author believes that tort liability is the way to control this culture, this cancel culture, because people nowadays no longer care about Tamper's rule. Given the significant negative impact of being cancelled, cancel culture is socially unreasonable, and therefore tort liability should be applicable. What is tort liability? What?
What is tort liability? A tort is a legal term that refers to a violation in which one person causes harm, injury, or damage to another. Intentional actions, a breach of duty such as negligence, or a violation of statutes can all result in a violation. The party that commits the tort is called the tortfeasor. A tortfeasor incurs tort liability, meaning that they will have to reimburse the victim for the harm that they caused them. In other words, the tortfeasor who is found to be liable or responsible for a person's injuries will likely to be required to pay damage. Under most tort laws, the injury suffered by the plaintiff does not have to actually be physical. A tortfeasor may be required to pay damage for other types of harm, including emotional distress or a violation of personal rights.
In this article, the author stated that the district court in Ekenwald v. Rivello recognized the value of manners and their relationship to civility when it stated the civil tort is a mechanism by which courts aid in the maintenance of a civil society, and as such, offensive contacts or those which are contrary to all good manners need not be tolerated. In fact, the fundamental purposes of our tort system are to deter wrongful conduct, shift losses to responsible parties, and fairly compensate deserving victims. Therefore, when one attempts to cancel another, should not our tort system deter that wrongful conduct and compensate the cancelee? Our society should hope that we learn from our mistakes and errors in judgment, to not only publicize those errors, but to use them to cause harm to another is unreasonable conduct. So far as there is one central idea in tort law, it would seem that it is that liability must be based upon conduct which is socially unreasonable. The common thread woven into all torts is the idea of unreasonable interference with the interests of others. Of course, the next question is which tort should apply, but William Lloyd Proctor contains there is no necessity whatever that a tort has a name. However, following the concept of unreasonable interference with the interests of others that I've stated just now, the intentional interference torts might be applicable.
Which tort should apply? The answer is the intentional interference torts. Generally, states recognize three types of tortious interference torts. Firstly, tortious interference with an existing contract. Secondly, tortious interference with business relations. And thirdly, tortious interference with an economic advantage. Tortious interference with an existing contract requires that a plaintiff allege, firstly, the existence of a contract between the plaintiff and a third party. Secondly, the defendant's knowledge of the contract. And thirdly, the defendant's intentional inducement of the third party to breach or otherwise render performance impossible and damage to the plaintiff. Tortious interference with business relations does not require any actual contract between the parties. Instead, it requires that firstly, the plaintiff show it had a business relationship with a third party. Secondly, the interfering party knew of that relationship. Thirdly, the interfering party intentionally interfered with it by using an improper or illegal means. And the last one, the interference caused injury to the relationship with the third party.
If a plaintiff cannot show either knowledge of a contract or a business relationship, some jurisdictions, such as New Jersey, will recognize interference with an economic advantage if the plaintiff can show 5 things. Firstly, a plaintiff existing reasonable expectation of economic benefit or advantage. Secondly, the defendant's knowledge of that expectancy. And thirdly, the defendant's wrongful intentional interference with that expectancy. The fourth one is the reasonable probability that the plaintiff would have received the anticipated economic benefit in the absence of interference. And the last one is the damage resulting from the defendant's interference. This is also referred to as interference with business expectancy, which clarifies that tortious interference with contract requires third-party interference with an existing contract between parties.
Tortious interference with an economic advantage requires third-party interference with a prospective contract between parties. The elements of a claim for intentional interference with prospective economic advantage may vary from state to state, but in California, for example, the elements are an economic relationship between the plaintiff and some third party with the probability of future economic benefit to the plaintiff, the defendant's knowledge of the relationship, intentional wrongful acts designed to disrupt the relationship, actual disruption of the relationship, and economic harm proximately caused by the defendant's actions.
As to the third element of an intentional wrongful act, the act must be independently wrongful, meaning wrongful by some legal measure other than the fact of interference. For instance, acts of defamation or disparagement are sufficiently independently wrongful to satisfy the third element of a claim for IIPEA, which stands for intentional interference with prospective economic advantage. If the victim or plaintiff meet all the requirements in any of the 3 types of tortious interference torts that the author have mentioned that I've presented just now, they can use it to take action to protect their rights and dignity. And alternatively, in some cases, if one maliciously interferes in a contract between 2 parties and induces one of them to break that contract to the injury of the other, the party injured can maintain an action against the wrongdoer. If the interference thoughts are unsuccessful for combating cancel culture, one might look to defamation or disparagement. However, defamation would not be appropriate in most cases of cancel culture because the tweets or other statements made on social media, for example, are often true. Right. While to disparage means to bring discredit or reproach upon, or to dishonor or to discredit, to lower in credit or esteem. A claim for disparagement typically involves economic loss related to a product rather than the reputational damage of defamation. Since Tamper's rule is not working, the author stated that it is time to think about imposing tort liability in this area because if a risk of tort liability exists, people may think twice before engaging in cancel culture.
A case might be made under false light publicity or against one who gives publicity to a matter concerning another that places the other before the public in a false light. To place someone in a false light does not necessarily mean that specifically false statements were made about the individual. Instead, misleading implications that the average person would find highly offensive are often enough. When referring to Carson King's case that I have mentioned in the introduction, although Carson King tweeted inappropriate statements in the past by Aaron Kelvin making these tweets public, he arguably showed King in a false light considering that Kelvin notes how King had matured since making the tweets. Part of the problem is that a newspaper in this type of situation might argue that all controversial tweets are newsworthy, regardless of whether the author has changed. While Carol Hunter, the executive editor of the Des Moines Register, the newspaper company, insists that the Register had no intention to disparage or otherwise cast a negative light on King, that argument stretched the boundaries of credibility. When sharing King's tweets, what other purpose was there than to cast a negative light? King's tweets were not newsworthy, nor was reporting them good manners. Kelvin and the newspaper knew of the rapid fame King was enjoying, as well as his relationship with Buzz Light, which they destroyed with their backgrounding. That disparagement and interference with business expectancy is the type of conduct that should be subject to tort liability in order to deter such conduct in the future. Tamper's rule. What is Tamper's rule? Why Tamper's rule is not relevant to end cancel culture? Why? In a 1942 animated Walt Disney film based on the book Bambi Alive in the Woods by Austrian author Felix Zoltan, there is a young rabbit character known as Tamper. When first introduced to the new font, Tamper remarked that Bambi is kinda wobbly. Tamper is scolded by his mother, who makes him repeat what his father had impressed upon him that morning. If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. This moral adage is known as Tamper's rule.
He doesn't walk very good, does he?
Tamper?
Yes, Mama.
What did your father tell you this morning?
If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Why Tamper's rule is not relevant to end cancel culture? Why? Unfortunately, Tamper's rule is routinely and blatantly ignored by people nowadays. It is the societal interest in gotcha that is troubling. Society is so interested in either pointing out or relishing in the past misdeeds of others. Thus, we should not pointing out or relishing in the past misdeeds of others and practice Tamper's rule. Remember, if you can say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
In conclusion, Anthony Lincoln once said, "It is not good to dig in the past, raise the ghost up from the grave, and have it walk with the flesh." Therefore, instead of canceling others, participating in this cancel culture, pointing out people's mistakes, and in the end subject to legal action because of the tort liability, we should have take some time. Start practicing Tamper's rule. Don't ignore it. Reflect on ourselves, on our mistake, and further improve ourselves. That's all from me. Thank you. Have a nice day.